Overall, I think the main issue is just taking what polls can tell you and not overestimating that. Because again, we know things can change.
Poll after poll shows that President Donald Trump is losing to his Democratic rival, Joe Biden. But many are wary of the accuracy of polling after Trump's surprise victory over Hillary Clinton in the 2016 presidential election.
We're going to keep winning because we're going to make America great again.
In the run-up to that election, many surveys had Clinton as the likely victor. But a closer examination of the 2016 election results shows that national polling wasn't exactly wrong.
The 2016 polls, I think the coverage of those and the reaction was largely misinterpreted. The national polls all were fairly accurate in terms of that Hillary Clinton would win the popular vote narrowly. That doesn't speak, as we know, obviously to the Electoral College. And in the state polls, there was a perception that the state polls had misled. And I think there were some polls that were conducted before the Comey letter and before what we know was late movement among voters who disliked both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and those moved to Trump at the end. We know that from the exit polls. The perception that Hillary Clinton was going to win, which was widely shared, had a whole lot to do with the forecast industry. Now we had lots of forecasters, and those are a little bit different than polls. They take the polls, they put their own special sauce into their models, and they came up with what people were hearing, an 80% chance that Clinton was going to win, a 90% chance that Clinton was going to win. Those were not polls, but it's complicated because people are getting lots and lots of different messages. And unfortunately, the polls, which kind of become the universal, word for everything we know about data, was not really the problem.
Though Trump's poll numbers have plummeted over his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's still possible for voters to come back to him.
Biden's been in front by about the same amount for quite a while. Trump's approval rating has been about the same amount for quite a while, a little bit lower now because a lot of people really feel that he's not providing the leadership in helping with the coronavirus. If there's a sense that people feel that there's a vaccine just around the corner or that there's better treatment available, and they start thinking about the economy and how we're going to then recover economically, those are the best numbers for Donald Trump.
Pollsters have tried to use what they learned from the last presidential election, but there are always some unknowns.
The polling gives you a pretty good rough estimate of what an election looks like at the time that it happens. There are always going to be a couple of misses. Polls, even the best polls, there's some degree of uncertainty. There's that margin of error. There's always going to be times when things don't line up with what people expected. And I think one of the things that pollsters really like to say is that a poll is a snapshot, not a prediction. And what that means is you take a poll, you find out, okay, this is a pretty good image of what people think at this moment in time. It can't tell you necessarily who's going to win, can't tell you whether people are going to change their minds, it can't tell you necessarily exactly which people are going to vote, which is always a huge struggle for pollsters. There are real significant challenges that polls are facing, and like anything else, there are surprises, there is uncertainty. At the same time, I think it's probably a better indicator of where the country is now than trying to count yard signs or looking at Twitter or a lot of the other alternatives out there.